Good morning, all of you. This
Good
is
morning.
this is Dr. Milind Agarwal from Geeta Way. I welcome all of you today on Sunday morning to listen to Dr. Manali Londe, who's principal in charge of SK Somaiya College of Arts, Science and Commerce. Dr. Manali and I had the good fortune to learn under Dr. Shubhada Joshi. She was our guide for our PhD thesis, and both of us chose the Gita as our core subject for our doctoral research. So Dr. Manali chose to focus on Gita and relationship between man and nature, ecology, environment, and how to interact. What is our relationship? And I chose the interdisciplinary research between Bhagavad Gita and management. So it is a real pleasure and delight to have my friend, colleague, and very respected academician, Dr. Manali Londe, with us. She's going to share her thoughts on relationship between man and nature in the Gita. And I also wanted to share some good news. When Santosh Srivastav ji and I started this Gita Way 4 weeks ago, it was just a casual conversation on Saturday afternoon. Inspiration was, of course, my guide, Dr. Shubhada Joshi, to start some activity on Bhagavad Gita. And 78 people have joined our group on WhatsApp. We are creating a website. And it seems like there is an insatiable demand of knowledge, content, and webinars on Bhagavad Gita. So I will collect some feedback from you this week, and we'll see what more programs or content curation we can do around the Bhagavad Gita. There is a lot of content already available, but I would look forward to feedback and hearing from you. What is the best format, best and best way to study the Gita? So now I'm going to switch over to Dr. Manali Londe and request her to take over this session and share her thoughts. Dr. Manali, I request you to unmute yourself and take over. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you so much, Milind. नमस्कार. सर्वप्रथम मी माझ्या आई वडिलांना नमस्कार करते, वंदन करते. So tribute to my beloved parents and respect to all my teachers. I'm so happy to see my guide and a true philosopher, Dr. Shubhada Joshi here. Thank you, madam, for being here. At the outset, I would like to thank the Geeta Way team and Milind Agarwal, Dr. Milind. Of course, he was kind enough and very generous in introducing me as an academician and a philosopher on the notification that he has circulated. But I prefer to be a student of philosophy, and I would like to be a student forever. Thank you so much, Milind. I hope I find all very well and safe today in these difficult times. I wish you all a very, very happy Mother's Day. In the morning, as on a special day, every day we get different kinds of forwards, the images. And we get to see a lot of creativity on the University of WhatsApp. Similarly, today I got one picture where it was shown that everybody is wishing mother, taking selfies with her. So that is a Mother's Day, and down, she's all alone on Others' Day. Now it is the matter of introspection, that whether we are doing the same with our Mother Nature. So I wish today is a Mother's Day. We must take care and we must take into consideration what we are and how we are protecting our Mother Earth. To start with, and when we speak, and today the main core or the subject of discussion would be how Bhagavad Gita teaches us to take care of our fellow beings and also of our nature. Last Sunday, you must have heard the eminent lecture by the scholar Dr. Shubhada Joshi, who mainly focused on the Loka Sangraha concept of Bhagavad Gita. It won't be exaggeration if I say that Bhagavad Gita is the pinnacle of Indian culture, Indian philosophy, literature, and a pinnacle of the entire knowledge, the wisdom that we can gain through our scriptures. So let's start. And when I say and talk about the human nature, of course, I don't want to generalize, but yes, in majority, we do find uh, the representatives of this kind of human nature in society or around us. So let me start with my presentation. So how our human nature is? I feel the human nature can be described as hedonistic approach. What is hedonistic? What is hedon? We all know that it is completely a pleasure-centric approach that we have in our life. And that pleasure, whatever we do in our life, whatever we set as our goals, all that take into consideration how I'll get the pleasure. So it is always pleasure-centric. It is also the right-centric approach, whereas we are meant to be duty-centric. I feel duty and rights, they always go together. If we do our duties properly, the rights will automatically follow. We don't have to fight for our rights. Sometimes, yes, but our nature is right centric and not duty centric. Our approach is always consumeristic approach. Now, what is consumerism? That means I have so much with me, but will always mange more. I'm not satisfied. And yes, I feel that, yes, there is something less which I have. And I always try to more and more. But then, because of this rising demand, there is always a rising pressure on environment. We are always materialistic. Why I say Gita is important, but because Gita is considered to be one of the Prasthana Trayis. There are main three Prasthana Trayis. The first one is the Vedic Prasthana Traya. Now, Vedic Prasthana Traya means the Upanishads, the Vedas, they are considered as the Smartha Prasthana. Brahma Sutras are the which depict all laws, rules, regulations, which are darshanik, and Bhagavad Gita, which is a Smriti Prasthana. So, like Vedic Prasthanatraya, of course, there are other two Prasthanatrayas. One of them again is the Pauranic Prasthanatraya, which includes Ramayana, Mahabharata, and Bhagavad. And the third one is the Pauranic Prasthanatraya, which includes Dasbodh of Samartha Ramdas, which is by sense. The Santanchi Prasthanatraya, which is by sense. So, Dasbodh by Ramdas, Bhavartha Deepika, that is Jnaneshwari, again commentary on Bhagavad Gita by Jnaneshwar. And also the Eknathi Bhagavat, where he has made particularly the commentary on 11th chapter of Bhagavad. So these are considered as, and Tukaramanchi Gatha, of course, that is the fourth one in Saints, Prasthanatraya. Now, what is Prasthanatraya is Prastiyate Anenangi Prasthanam. That is the one, the knowledge, the wisdom which takes us from the prayers to Shreyas. Now, praise is the abhyudaya or whatever the material well-being we see around, and we always look forward to achieve that. But there is a goal which is much at a higher level, and that is the Shreyas. So this study of all these prasanatrayas, they help us in elevating our own self. So when we are at the ordinary level, the human nature is very materialistic. We are always considered and concerned about how I would be, how my life would be luxurious. Whatever is available, yes, I should be available to me also. So we always tend to look ahead, means those who are like affluent, we try to look towards them and not those who are not even able to get the basic needs. Here, it shows our self-centered attitude. It reminds me of one advertisement. Even most of you also must have watched that on television. I don't know whether it is on air today also, now also. But the advertisement depicts that there is a dying father. He's on the dying deathbed, and he knows that yes, he is into his last moments. The son is beside the bed, and the son is not bothered about the health of the father. He is very egocentric, he is very self-centered, and he is very selfish. So he's more worried about what kind of wealth my father is going to keep behind for me. And there is a legal paper in his hands, and where the will is made. The amount is mentioned because the son is very well aware that the remaining everything would go to any some social on NGO, or because the father is a very good social worker. But this son, he is worried about what kind of wealth the father is going to keep on his name. And therefore, he tries to increase more and more zeros on the will paper. Now there is no space left to increase any more zeros. He's happy. He just leaves his father, the father dies. But the son is not bothered about that at all. The son comes to the door, or the enters to leave or to meet the advocate. And then he reaches to that door, but a pipe on the door is leaking, and a drop of the water falls on the very first digit, not the unit place, but it falls on the very first digit. And what happens? The value of the will remains zero. Jokes apart, but this particular advertisement, I feel, it depicts the awareness of right and duties. So the son is aware of the rights, but not as duties towards his father. He is aware and concerned more about that what is his right that the father will keep him after his death. So I feel the human nature, we have to introspect, and the change is expected. The next picture also depicts the same. See now here, the child is not worried that why the tree is cut, but he is more worried that now his hammock cannot be tied, and he cannot have the enjoyment. So this is our attitude. Now, when I say it is our attitude, I don't want to generalize. There are good people also. They are very concerned about others and even the fellow beings, even the other creatures and the nature into large sense. But the picture depicts that the tree cut is no of any concern for the child, but he cannot tie the hammock, and he cannot have the pleasure. He cannot enjoy his vacations, is the concern that he shows. Most of us are the teachers and from the field of education. What is the main goal of education? It's not just giving or passing on the information to the students or to the next generation. The data is available today with the media and with the digital IT technological inventions. Yes, information is available on one click. We are more concerned about the knowledge. So information gives everything about who, what, when, where it is done. But knowledge is how that information can be used. We have a lot of information on by the University of WhatsApp also, but we are not worried to see or verify whether the information is authentic. But what we are worried about, that in the race of forwards also, I should be the first one to forward, and without checking the authenticity of that, verifying the authenticity of that, we just forward the information, which might lead to anxiety, which might lead to dangerous situation. And therefore, knowledge means to verify the information. And more important that, when we apply this knowledge, implement this knowledge in our daily life, that becomes the wisdom.
You are using
Hello?
Don't speak.
Osama bin Laden was very intelligent.
Hello?
But can we say he was wise? No, because he misused his intelligence for the destruction. And therefore, philosophy, which is defined as love for wisdom, wisdom should be the ultimate goal of our life. In 1992 to 1994, hello? In 1992 to 1994, there was one study which was done by Dunlap, Flynn, and Lodwick. This was an empirical study, and it studied mainly the entrenched conventions which propel us to lead environmental unsound lifestyles, which may be described as the thinking disorders. And during this study, what do they found? That humans can control the nature and use it as per their advantage. The natural environment is valuable because it provides necessary resources. Natural resources are ample for human needs, and unlimited growth and progress are possible, and technology can solve most of humans' problems. But today, we see whatever problems we face in our life, technology and science cannot be the answer. If we introspect, if we look within, we come to know that taming mind, controlling mind is the main solution with which we can overcome the problems today, which are within and which are without. And therefore, we come back to our scriptures, we come back to our Vedas, and particularly the Bhagavad Gita. The concept of natural order, which is a Ruta, the concept of Ruta, the concept of Ruta is also equated to Satya. It is also equated to the concept of Dharma, Dharma in the sense duty, righteousness, virtuousness. So how this order is, it is a social and moral order. It is a divine principle. It is harmony. It brings solidarity. It is at the cosmic level. It is also at the moral level. And therefore, the nature itself is in order. These are the human activities which are trying to misuse this order. These are the human activities we try to actually disturb this order, and then we only come into trouble. We know that there is an order for days and nights. There is order for seasons. Of course, nowadays the seasons we see that some of the seasons get extended, but they don't change their order. The extension of the seasons are also the results of human activities, because we have taken granted what we can get from the nature. We have never given a thought that what we can give to the nature. And hence, we have to be very careful about following the order of the nature. It is a divine principle. This order is set by God, because the main objective is, because of this order, the harmony is set, the solidarity is set. The Ruta is of two types. One is at the cosmic level, which is at a very high level, and one is at the moral level. What is that moral level? It is at the ordinary level. It is our duty to protect the Ruta as at the cosmic level. We cannot reach, but we can reach and protect that cosmic Ruta through moral level. Now, this moral level is what? It is the concept of Runa. All of us know that we have already been using the terms Runatraya, Deva Runa, Rushi Runa, Matrupitru Runa. Now, Deva Runa, because yes, we are blessed to have the human life and we are grateful to God, the divinity. Rushi Runa, whatever the knowledge and wisdom we are possessing, it is mainly because of Rishis and Gurus. Otherwise, we will not have got that. Matru Pitru Runa is again because of our birth in that particular family, and whatever the values which have been inculcated by us, it is because of our parents' teachers. Now, when we talk about the Runa concept, Runa again, which is Ruta, and Dharma, because Dharma again, which is righteous. through Runa, we are going to protect this moral level of Runa. We know this Runatraya, but when this Runa indebtedness, when this Runa can be protected, it is only when we inculcate those values and we give those values to our next generation. It's not when on the Teachers' Day we wish our teacher a very happy Teachers' Day, but when whatever I learned from my teacher and I pass it on to my students, and when I bring up that student in a good human being, that day my Runa is repaid towards my teacher. Similarly is in case of Matra Pitra Runa as well. So when those values are given to the next generation, so that time we are repaying our Runa. Along with this Runa Traya, in Shatapatha Brahmana, we do find the mention of Manava Runa, that is, our duties towards our fellow beings and the society. But I feel, along with Matru Pitru Runa, Deva Runa, Rishi Runa, Manava Runa, even Nisarga Runa is equally important. It is our duties towards our Mother Nature. These are the duties towards our planet, and where it is our duty to protect that. Therefore, it is very much duty centric. We saw human nature is right centric, but have to focus how to be duty centric. And as I said, Ruta is dharma, virtues, how I can inculcate that in my life, day-to-day activities. And if I don't do that, which we are observing right now everywhere around us, all over the world, is anruta, that is actually the adharma. We have taken nature granted like anything. We always inframe that. And therefore, what is necessary? Our scriptures give the huge portion of knowledge to us. In Rig Veda, it is mentioned that prayers are offered to the deity of water. All these five basic elements, Panchamabdas, we worship them. Water, fire, Agni Tattva, these are the tattvas, principles. Vayu Tattva, Agni Tattva, Jala Tattva, and of course the space and the earth. In Varaha Purana also it is written, one who plants tree won't go to hell. Padma Purana says, one who destroys grass field will definitely go to hell. Kautilya Arthashastra also mentions and prescribes punishments for the destroyers of the habitat and nature. Charak Samhita says, Vanaspati has direct relationship with nature, and today, if you see the advancements in Ayurveda and even the medicinal field, we have so much of research done on this. And destruction of forest is most dangerous for the nation and human beings, and also it is dangerous to the sustainability. Now, what do we observe in today's society? That in spite of the affluence, there is lack of peace of mind, deterioration of values, social and natural exploitation is there, and threat to the sustainability. What are the main causes of that? Materialistic and selfish attitude, that is the human nature we discussed. Unending desires, lust, passion. And therefore, an imperative, what is the solution? Nothing but controlling or taming the mind. Bhagavad Gita, in its second chapter, that is the Sankhya Yoga, teaches us how we can tame our mind, how we can discipline our mind. Because when we talk about our problems that we face in life at the social level, individual level, moral level, or even at the ecological level, we do find answers to these problems within our own self. The problems start with our own desires, our expectations, needs. Once that is controlled, definitely we are going to overcome the problems that we face. And Bhagavad Gita gives us solution to that. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, that is the Sankhya Yoga, from verses 54 to 72, which is definitely a very long chapter of 72 verses, Lord Krishna describes the characteristics of Sthita Prajna, a stable-minded person. And there we do find how we can tame our mind, how we can control our mind. Because we know what we are doing. We are very much aware that whatever the problems that we are facing today, they have started with me. We can't deceive our own self. We can deceive the entire world, but we can't deceive our own self. And therefore, introspection is necessary. Bhagavad Gita teaches us that mainly through Sankhya Yoga. And when we talk about duties, the very important and famous verse of Bhagavad Gita, Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phalishu kadachana. So the measures are given by Bhagavad Gita to overcome the different problems at the different levels in our life. The very important teachings of Bhagavad Gita is this fashion. That how we can be a bhokta, how we can be a karta. Now, a karta is not that we should not be doing our any karmas or actions. A karta means the renunciation has to be there in duties or in actions. Renunciation in actions and not renunciation of actions. We should keep on doing karmas. So, in third and fourth chapter, Bhagavad Gita teaches us the karma vipaka also, the differences between karma, akarma, and vikarma. Karma is our regular duties, day-to-day duties, and the actions, karmas. Vikarma is, which is nishiddha karma, which we should not get involved into. All wrong acts are considered as vikarma. And akarma is the one where we should keep on doing duties with detachment. So this dispassion has to be there. And there, Lord Krishna says, Sukha Dukkha Samekritva Labha Labho Jaya Jaya. I know it is very easy to say and difficult to practice. We have to be very stable. We have to be neutral in the times of pleasure and happiness. And we also have to be neutral at the times of the difficulties, challenging times. Today we are experiencing that, isn't it? Now the people are losing the patience in the time of this lockdown. But this is for our better future. Today, if we see, we have understood the difference between our needs and our wants. So what are our needs today? The medicines, health, good food, cleanliness, a disciplined life. These are our needs and which we are taking care of every day. But if we again compare our own life pre-lockdown, when the parties were going on, the food was available, fast food was available, the malls were crowded, the theaters were crowded, and now here we understand that without them, yes, our life is going on well. So those are wants which are actually not needed, but the needs which are taking care today on daily life basis, these are what we should focus on. Today we are with our own family members. Isn't it that we were looking for this time when we were busy at our workplace and we used to think this, yes, our Saturday, Sunday are also busy. We must get time with our own loved ones. Today we have got that time. So let's cherish that time. And this is the time that we have got as an opportunity. So it is not where we are locked, but it is the liberty that we have to look within, to look within our own self, to introspect. And therefore, Bhagavad Gita also speaks about endurance. There are different types of emotions, but we have to be stable-minded. In case of a lot of happiness, it is always said when you are very happy, you should not promise anything. Recently, the very famous serial got over Ramayana. All of you have seen that. Dashrath, in his very happy moment, you promised to Kaikeyi. It all depends on how the other person takes their promises, whether he uses or misuses. And hence it is said, when you are very, very happy, don't promise. And when you are angry, don't take any decision. Therefore, the emotional quotient, all of you are aware of IQ, EQ, and SQ. Now, what is that? EQ is your emotional quotient. The psychological surveys also have shown that in the development of personality, the IQ plays only 10% of the role. The rest of role is taken care of by the EQ and SQ. So emotional quotient and SQ is the social quotient or the spiritual quotient. So emotions, how we can control our emotions, all our actions depend on that. Bhagavad Gita helps us to understand that. We can learn a lot from second chapter, Sankhya Yoga. Sankhya means, it has got two meanings. Sankhya is Sankhya, whereas Sankhya is knowledge. So this knowledge we get from the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And therefore the endurance is the main characteristics we must inculcate in our own self. And SQ is not exactly related to the spiritual, the religious context, but it is related to our own self. How we can elevate our own self. If we are not able to change the outer world, sometimes definitely we have to introspect and whether the changes are needed within our own self. How I can elevate myself towards the wisdom. That is SQ. We must be aware of that. And therefore, it is the era of selfie, isn't it? I feel every one of us should have one selfie at the end of the day, not with a mobile. But when we go to bed, let's scan our own self and see. Try to introspect whether I hurt anybody in the day. How was my day? Whether I helped anybody? Did I have hurt anybody with my speech? Even my thoughts were, which should not be, that is, dangerous thoughts. So such kind of selfie all of us should have at every day. And let's try the next day, every next day, the selfie should be better than yesterday's. So I feel for that, Bhagavad Gita guides us towards wisdom. Bhagavad Gita also speaks about the interdependence and interconnectedness of the species. There are three kingdoms: human kingdom, animal kingdom, vegetable kingdom. Somewhere we have lost, or selfish or a selfish attitude is not allowing us to respect the other two kingdoms, but we consider them as means to achieve our own selfish aims. And when human activities start exploiting the nature, we have already seen, witnessed how the nature has the ultimate word. And therefore, when we talk about the interdependence, interconnectedness in the third and fifth chapter, Bhagavad Gita explains that to us. In the third chapter, it says, Annat bhavanti bhutani parjanyat anna sambhava. Yajnat bhavanti parjanyo yajna karma samudbhava. All of us know that all bhutas, that all organisms, living organisms, we strive on the food. But how we get food? It is possible due to rains. How these rains are possible? Only through yajna karma. Now here yajna karma is the symbolic of our karmas, actions, true, and the actions which are with the concern of ecology, and yajna is more related to sacrifice. So when such actions are performed, when all our actions are in tune with the ecological concern, yes, the interconnectedness, interdependence, the circle, the wheel will go on. But what we try to do for our own benefits, selfish wants and needs, we try to go against this circle and the will of the nature. And then ultimately we only come into problems. When I was doing this studies and research, I came across one very good sentence. The author says, nature bats at the end but owns the stadium. Batting, we are the cricket followers. Nature bats at the end but owns the city. And that is absolutely true. Similarly, Bhagavad Gita also says, Ishtan bhogan yo deva dasyante yanya bhavita terdattan aparadhya go yo bhunte senaiva. So here, Lord Krishna is calling the one who always tries to exploit nature for his own demands and selfish motives. He is no one else but he is Sena eva saha. Sena means a thief. We are thieves because we always take, we are exploiting nature for our own demands. Bhagavad Gita shows us the equality, the ecological justice in its chapters. In one verse, it says, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavi Hastini Shuni Chaiva Shvapaketa Pandita Samadarshana. That a Pandit, a well knowledgeable person, Gavi, that is a cow, Hastini, elephant, Shwan, that is the dog. All are equal, all are at one place. But what we consider other animate things, they are inferior than the humans because humans have the consciousness. We try to mold the nature the way we want. We consider ourselves as superior, but which is wrong. In the process, we are exploiting them. We don't have any right to do so. Similarly, Bhagavad Gita also explains divinity in nature in chapter 10. Why I feel that particular chapter is very important? More than 139 vibhutis have been given in that particular chapter. Lord Krishna says, Aham Atma Gudakesha Sarva Bhutam Cha Sthitaha Aham Adim Cha Madhyam Cha Bhutanam Antam Eva. So where all these bhutas, I reside, I am there, the divinity present in there. I am the one who is the beginner of this existence, who is the sustainer and who is the destroyer. Antam Eva Cha. So the beginning and the end and the one. So I feel that the beginning of the nature, the entire universe, the end of it and the sustenance all depends on God's will. But we try to overcome that. We try to overcome and overpower the nature, which is wrong. Let's go to the next slide. And therefore, these questions which we have to address, that is, how could be a man prepared to control his aggressive competitiveness and the possessiveness of the individualism? How can be prevented from his inclination towards the obsession with materialism, consumption, and consumerism? Why was the concept of divinity in nature, which is emphasized in scriptures, not maintained over centuries? What is the role of individual to the society and nature? And can these goals be attained without neglecting scientific and technological development? The answer is yes, but for that, the answer lies with our own self, and therefore, controlling and taming of mind is absolutely an imperative. No doubt, the scientific and technological advances have given us enormous comforts. Today, I am able to establish a dialogue with you all is only because of the technological invention. But at the same time, we have to be very careful whether these inventions are in tune with the ecological concern or not. And that is our main duty. Because we understand that the progress in art, science, technology, they have made the development as an ongoing process. And yes, the progress has to be ongoing. And it will be. But each artifact, each invention, each innovation, it thrives on stealing something from nature. And that is a wrongful gain, one way, definitely. And it is a wrongful gain of man, and it is the wrongful loss to the nature. And therefore, it asks for the introspection. So what is the imperative? We have to control our desires. When these desires are fulfilled and when the desires are unfulfilled, or when there is dissatisfaction. See, in both the cases, we tend to neglect our duties. As I said, when the desires are fulfilled, yes, now I want something more. We'll always mange more. And that leads to greed. Once greed is there, at any cost, I must in the position of whatever I want. And that tend to take us away from our duties. That distracts us and duties are neglected. Of course, when the desires are not satisfied, yes, there are refracted thoughts, and then if I'm not able to get that, anger is the end result. When there is an anger, there is loss of control, and the decisions go wrong, and where again we tend to neglect our duties. When we talk about the scientific innovations, comforts, yes, no doubt it has given us comforts and gadgets which are very useful in our day-to-day life. Our life has become very easy, but this easy life has resulted into more demands. And when the demands increase, you know, the theory of demand and supply, we try to increase the supply. When we try to increase the supply, it is an additional pressure on the environment, which lead to scarcity of resources. There are two types of resources. One is renewable and non-renewable. Non-renewable resources, all of us know that once they are exhausted forever. But then there is uncontrolled pressure on even on the renewable resources because we take nature granted and we feel that yes, our wants have to be satisfied and to be taken care of, and that leads to threat to the sustainability. So our entire approach of our life is bhoga. Tendency to consume, possessiveness increases, exploitation increases, violence. See, when there is violence, the scarcity of resources, at the end it might lead to the warlike situation because wherever the natural resources are available, even at the political level, it will lead to the violence. Disparities will be there, haves and have not, and that leads to the exploitation and which is threat to the sustainability. But Bhagavad Gita teaches us the deontological approach, the moral approach that we must inculcate in ourselves, the tendency to give. We must reduce the possessiveness. It will lead to nourishment. We will start taking care of our nature. And then only it will lead to peace. So when we try to keep peace as our object, what happens? We start giving respect to the rights of other people. That is also a duty. It is a part of your duty. But what we do, we focus on rights and not on duties. But one of the duties is to respect the right of others. And that will reduce the disparity and which will conserve the nature. Which is very important. If you remember, when we were small in schools, during our vacations, we used to remove all the blank pages of all the notebooks, and which we used to bind it, and that was our book, which we used to use throughout the year. Now, if one family, if one book is created out of this, you can imagine in a class there are 60 students, 60 books. In a school, multiplied by 10 divisions, how many books are created, how many notebooks are created. It means the creation of the pages or the supply of the pages can be reduced and it will lead to the cutting of even the trees. This attitude has to be there, which Bhagavad Gita teaches us the attitude of Tyaga. What we are right now, our duty, we are more right-centric. What we should be Sahayogi. We should be Tyagi. We should be Udyogi. We should be Yogi. But what we are due to materialistic outlook, we are Bhogi, and because of this attitude, we become Rogi. That's why I feel that we have to be sahayogi. Sahayogi means helping each other. The harmony has to be there, solidarity, oneness, helping each other. We have to be yogi, sincere seeker. Bhagavad Gita teaches us yoga karma kaushalyam. And that's why it becomes yoga. Otherwise, see, we have also faced many times dilemma in our life. Arjuna's dilemma, that is Vishada. First chapter of Bhagavad Gita is Vishada Yoga. Why it became Vishada Yoga? Arjuna's dilemma becomes Vishada Yoga because it was a yoga. He fully concentrated, completely concentrated on his duties as Kshatriya, and then he overcame his emotions towards his teachers and um, the relatives. Definitely, it was a dilemma because all relatives and the teachers were there, and he was in dilemma that why should I fight against them? So, what is the wisdom lies here? That the war is not against the relatives and the teacher, but the war was between the good and evil. And being Kshatriya, he has to protect the good, and therefore he becomes yogi. So we have to be sahayogi, yogi. We have to be udyogi. We have to be industriousness. We follow a disciplined life. Similarly, we have to be healthy. So we should overcome our rogi attitude. Now this rogi attitude comes because we are bhogi. So Bhagavad Gita teaches us how we can be sahayogi, udyogi, yogi, nirogi, udyogi. And when we overcome our bhoga, when we try to less our bhogi, and then definitely we can overcome our illnesses. So this is great contribution of Bhagavad Gita, and it is our duty to learn that and inculcate that in our life. So we are completely into this material loop. There is a vicious circle. Why? Because we are more right centric, right centrism, consumerism. I need and more luxurious life. I'm always focused on the material well-being, and therefore this object of gratification leads. There are so many obstacles. Every want we cannot satisfy, and where our thoughts get refracted, we become angry. That will lead to loss of control. And what happens in this process? There is bewilderment of memory. We lose the capacity of discrimination. Then we, under the influence of anger, we are not able to differentiate between what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad, what is virtuous, what is vicious, and accordingly our actions get designed. So the attention is diverted, and again we get caught in the material pool. Bhagavad Gita's second chapter, which depicts the characteristics of Sthita Prajna or stable-minded person, there are two verses. Verse number 62 and 70. It says, "Dhyatam sanjayate kamaha, kamat krodho vijayate. Krodhat bhavati sammoha, sammohat smriti vibhramaha. Smriti bhashad buddhinasho, buddhinashat pranashyati." Now this particular loop, Bhagavad Gita depicts this way, that when there is insatiable thirst for something which is materialistic attitude, with the materialistic attitude, we get caught into the loop of these unwanted things. And anger is one under the influence of which our memory gets completely lost, and therefore we lose the discrimination power. And most of the time, under the influence of anger, whatever decisions we take, they go wrong. So I feel Bhagavad Gita has a lot to teach us how to tame our mind. So if we want any change in the outer world, the change first must take in the inner world. A lot of has been done to set the things right in the outer world. Now it is the duty of each and every individual to look within and set the things right in the inner world. At the present times, we are going through very, very difficult, challenging system and challenging times. This is mostly like a war. This war is different than the two world wars. This is a war with a difference, war between the good and evil, right and wrong. And therefore we have to introspect, that is an imperative. So this is, as this is a vicious circle, there can be a positive vicious circle too. That is, when we tame our mind, when we control our mind, that controlled mind will lead to inner development of an individual. And then we know, we understand how we can reduce our wants. Isn't it that the present times have taught us that our wants can be reduced, and at the same time we can live very peacefully, actually more peacefully than earlier, because we have understood the difference between the need and the wants. And when the wants are reduced, the pressure on the environment, the pressure on the nature also is controlled. And that leads to the outer development of an environment where there is equal concern for other two species, other two kingdoms as well, through which the ecological justice is maintained. And then definitely there would be peace within. And once there is peace within, there is peace without. I feel when we talk about our conscience and we consider ourselves as superior as compared to other two kingdoms, the vegetable kingdom and the animal kingdom, it is our first and foremost duty to use that conscience to maintain the ecological justice. When we say it is the entire whole and we are just the part of it, Puranam, Mada Puranamidam. So it is the Purna, we are just part of this Purna, the other two kingdoms are also part of it. We must respect the rights of other two kingdoms. But in reality, what happens? We are not bothered about it. My journey has to be comfortable, and hence I will support the expressway. I don't mind even paying the huge toll, but I need to have a very comfortable journey. And for that expressway, I'm not bothered even if the trees are cut, the mountains are slashed. And then which lead to the soil erosion. It leads to the changes in the seasons. But I'm not bothered as long as I'm getting the comfort. I want to have my journey without any signal, without any traffic. I'm ready to pay the toll for the sea link road. But at the same time, the creation of the sea link, the construction of the sea link damages the aquatic life there. But we become very, very self-centered. And when we know, when we try to inculcate, when we try to introspect, when we try to inculcate these teachings of Bhagavad Gita, we come to know that yes, this inner development is possible. And as there is a negative vicious circle, we can get ourselves into this positive circle. So taming mind, controlling mind is the prerequisite for all the solutions that we can expect to have. And therefore, there has to be unity of thought, unity of words and deeds. There has to be unity of knowledge, and we must apply that knowledge. That is what is expected from us. Unity of episteme and wisdom. Now, through reading, through learning, through listening, yes, we accept that that unity has to be there, but unity should be there. I know that environment conservation is my main duty. I tell others also, but it would be completed when it will be implemented by me. So the wisdom lies in my actions, not just what are my thoughts or what I talk to others. The wisdom lies what is my behavior. Vivekananda had once said, your thoughts will determine your action will decide your habits. Your habits will only form your character, and the character will determine your destiny. And therefore, this unity of knowledge and the application of that knowledge is very, very important. We know all these three kingdoms, they are the equal part of the nature. We consider ourselves as superior. For their survival, the vegetable kingdom is not dependent on humans. The animal kingdom is not dependent on humans for their survival. But what about us? For our survival, yes, we do, and we are dependent on the other two kingdoms. Still, we consider ourselves as superior. And hence, internalization, introspection is an imperative. And the unity of episteme and wisdom will be possible only when we implement this knowledge through our actions. All of us know the 4 R's of the sustainable development. So when we talk about the sustainable development, that this planet is not the peaceful planet to live for our present generation, but it would be peaceful for the many, many more generations to come. It should be peaceful, and we have to set the things right for the generations to come. So all these 4 R's are very important: reuse, recycle, repair, and reduce. Now we are actually following the Western philosophy of use and throw, which we must discontinue. We must in a position to reuse, recycle. All the recyclable commodities we must use. We must repair. What do we think? Yeah, my clock is not working. This watch is not working. I should throw it out. I should buy a new one. But when you throw it out and when you buy the new one, again the demands for more supply, and that supply demands for the more pressure on the nature. So what is an imperative? It is reduce our wants, reduce our desires. As there are 4 R's more important, I feel the 4 C's according to me are also important. Without curiosity, there cannot be science. So yes, curiosity leads to scientific invention. Then when there is creativity, then only it will lead to technological advances. The progress is not possible without a competition, but all these will get destroyed if there is no compassion. And I feel this 4th C is absolutely important: the compassion. Compassion about fellow beings, compassion about the vegetable kingdom, compassion about the animal kingdom as well. And therefore, as 4 R's are important, equally the 4 C's are important. The fourth one is the most important, and which will lead to sustainable and the holistic development that we aspire for. Honorable Prime Ministers, recently he had one address to the nation, and where he speaks about the abbreviations of vowels. There he speaks about A, E, I, O, U. So A is adaptability, E is efficiency, I is inclusivity, O is opportunity, and U is universalism. I feel, yes, when we talk about the ecological concern, we can imply all these vowels into our behavior. A is adaptability. So adaptability means not that how we are getting adapted to the different situations, Darwin's principle of adaptability. But we must include the other two kingdoms also in that, and we must understand the requirements, we must respect the rights of the other two kingdoms as well. He speaks about the efficiency because it is the lockdown times and where we can improve efficiency. Let's introspect today and let's decide that is for E, for us, we will have the ecological concern, ecological justice. How through my behavior I maintain this ecological concern and I contribute to the ecological justice. For that, inclusivity is the important vowel. Now, inclusivity means all aspects of nature The green aspect of life should be my main goal, my objective. O is opportunity. Now, this is the opportunity that we have got. We must sit calmly and introspect, and let's make the changes which are required in our life. Now, we have understood the importance of homemade food, being together with our own family, then not depending on the outside food, the fast food. We know that malls, the theaters, the parties, all these materialistic well-beings are where our wants and not the needs. And hence we have got opportunity to introspect. Let's use that opportunity and let's use this wisdom and continue this wisdom forever. The U is universality. This is our own tradition, our own culture, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So, through each and every one's contribution, we are going to maintain this universalism, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So, that is our primer and foremost, first and foremost duty to inculcate all this in our daily life. It is our duty, it is our responsibility that how we are going to maintain this discipline even in post-lockdown scenario. That is a very, very major challenge. I'm sure once we decide, we can implement. So what is needed is an attitudinal change on our part. Attitude of giving protects, attitude of consuming exploits. And therefore, human duty is to protect the nature, the natural wealth, and we must conserve the nature. It is our first and foremost duty. That's how we are going to contribute. Today, we see the pictures on media, the social media also, how beautiful our earth looks. The earth has, and earth is so powerful that it balances its own self. The water of Ganga has become so clear. The other day I received some pictures from Bangalore. We feel that yes, it is some foreign country. No, it's our own country, our own land. So beautiful, and it's our duty to maintain as it is, even post lockdown period also. So the attitudinal change is the important imperative. And today is Mother's Day. Towards our Mother Earth, let's take this vow that yes, we will bring this attitudinal change. It's my duty and I will fulfill my duty. So definitely there is a solution for the pollution. I feel we have to take care of our Mother Earth. We have to protect it. We have to preserve it. And we have to promote this ecological concern. There is a lot to learn from Bhagavad Gita. There is a lot to learn from our own scriptures. And let's we be the example for others to follow. This is an opportunity given by this lockdown period that yes, we have time to introspect. It is our duty and we will implement that. We can and we will make the difference. So let's start thinking about how we can continue conserving this beautiful nature and protect it. So when we talk about the tree plantation, what is our nature? If the trees would have emitted the Wi-Fi signals, we would have planted more trees and we would have saved the planet. But so sad that trees give only the oxygen that we breathe. So let's have attitudinal change in our life. Let's change. Let's be the example for others to follow. Gita has taught us, yad yad acharati shrestha devetaro jana sarya pramanam kurute lokas tadanuvartate. So with our own actions, with our own behavior, let's set an example for the society to follow. I would end with one symbolic example of pencil. A pencil. If there is no graphite in the pencil, it can't write. There has to be the willingness. It comes from within. So that is the graphite. If nobody holds the pencil, then also nothing can be written. So we cannot live in isolation. We need togetherness. We need the help of others. So as others help us, we also help others. Not only fellow beings, but both the species as well. The pencil is with a sharpener. So let's be ready to update our skills. If modification is required, yes, be ready positively. The pencil is with the eraser. If there are any mistakes, let's introspect and be positive to change that. This is the time available for us to make the use of the eraser for our life. When a sharpened pencil to write on a page, it always leaves, when we write on page with a sharpened pencil, we always, it leaves a mark on the next page. Let's be such a pencil which leave marks for the generations to come and children to follow us. Let's be the example. With this, I end my dialogue and I wish a very happy Mother's Day today to all of you. I wish me and all you get a very healthy life, lead a very safe, healthy life. सर्वेत्र सुखिनः सन्तु सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखं प्राप्नुयात्. Thank you so much. I'm grateful to each one of you for the patient listening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Manali Londe. It was such a pleasure to listen to you and learn from you. I hope this recording works, and I'm going to put the recording of this webinar session on YouTube. I will share the link with all of you on the WhatsApp group. And I just wanted to thank you on behalf of all the organizers of the Gita Way group.
Thank you, Dr. Milind, that I extend my grateful thanks to your entire team.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
And for all attending this session, we are also figuring out the best way to conduct these webinars. And as you said, as you saw this week, this was a very disruption-free webinar which we could organize. Of course, you had to undergo the registration step, which was additionally required to make this webinar secure. I will speak to Dr. Shubhda Joshi ma'am and see whenever she can create time next Sunday or following Sunday, depending on her schedule, and we will set up a lecture with her. If you have any thoughts or suggestions, please write to us on the WhatsApp group, or I flashed the email ID. It's info@gitaway.in. Info is info at gitaway, GITAWAY.in. Please feel free to send in your suggestions and let us know if you want more such lectures. So once again, thank you, ma'am. And
thank you so much.
Sunday. Thank you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Yeah. And wish you all very, very happy and healthy life. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you.